introduction.
Welcome. Good afternoon. My name is Sergeant First Class Joshua Everett, and I'm here today to talk to you about the history of your brigade, my brigade, our brigade, the 316th Cavalry Brigade. It's important that we know our history of our unit because that unit is made up of people just like me and you. General George S. Patton, okay, one of the most famous generals from World War II, he was a cavalryman like me, okay, and what he said at one point was, and I quote, "Wars may be fought with weapons, but they are won by men," unquote. So, like me and you, we are people, we're part of this unit. It's important that we know our history. What we'll talk about today is we'll talk about the origins of our brigade and the unit to which we draw our lineage. We'll talk about the history of our subordinate units, the 16th Cavalry Regiment. We'll talk about our current organization and how that reflects upon our history. And we'll talk about the unit patch that we all wear to represent all the things this unit has done. For your own research, if you'd like to look this up yourself, I got most of this information from a great work called Seek, Strike, and Destroy by Dr. Christopher Gable, which is about the tank destroyer units, and I'll give you more about them later, in World War II. There's also 3 websites I can point you to when my presentation is over on the brigade, 16th Regiment's history, and our unit patch. So the patch you see before you is the patch of the 8th Tank Destroyer Group, which was a unit that fought in World War II. This is the unit to which we trace back our lineage. The 8th Tank Destroyer Group was founded in October of 1942 at what was then Camp Hood, Texas, which is of course now Fort Hood, Texas. And much like what we do nowadays, as you young infantrymen know, it's really hard to kill a tank with a rifle. The tank destroyers, they were taken and broken down into company-sized elements, and they were attached to the infantry so that when we were fighting all those German tanks in World War II, this gave you some tank fighting capability. So when you watch those World War II movies and you're inspired by the infantry battles and what you young guys did back then, remember the tank destroyers were there with you too. The 8th Tank Destroyer Group fought all across Europe, fought in, its campaigns were northern France, Germany, and Central Europe, so it was all over. The war was won, by the time the war was won in August of 1945, the unit was sent back to the United States. And in 1947, remember that year, it was redesignated with the name we have now, the 316th Cavalry Brigade. What's weird about that is in 1947, from 1947 to 1959, the brigade was stationed in Roswell, New Mexico. For those of you who don't know, in 1947, some weird UFO thing, can't tell you, I don't know anything more about it, possibly happened in Roswell, New Mexico. The same time period, you can't find much history about our brigade, but that's where it was, Roswell, New Mexico. What also is weird, that you guys might have noticed, is the 1st and 3rd Squadrons of the brigade are called the 1st and 3rd Squadrons of the 16th Cavalry Regiment. Why do they have a different name? Well, it's because the 16th Cavalry Regiment itself has a very storied history. The 16th Regiment was founded in 1916 at Fort Sam Houston, Texas, and just like now, it was responsible for training, just like we're responsible for training now. It trained individual replacement soldiers to go over and fight World War I. In World War II, the unit fought as a group, as a whole, against the Germans in Europe. And in between the wars and after World War II, it was stationed all across the United States, from California to Maine, and many, many points in between. Another interesting fact, D Company of the 16th Cavalry Regiment, which is what we are in now, was an airborne tank unit back then, the only airborne tank unit. They were airdroppable is what that means. They were droppable. You could drop them out of a plane. It was the only airborne tank unit in Vietnam, and it was D Company. Of course, in the 1980s, the regiment was moved to Fort Knox, Kentucky, where it began responsibility for training armor officers and armor NCOs, like myself, which reflects kind of our current mission. We still have that mission. The thing with our current mission in the brigade right now is it kind of straddles the line between infantry and cavalry. Your own school, the Reconnaissance and Surveillance Leaders Course, trains Rangers and infantrymen. The United States Army Sniper School and the Heavy Weapons Leaders Course are all focused on training infantrymen. Of course, we still are responsible for the Army Reconnaissance Course and Armor Basic Officer Leaders Course, which is, of course, for cavalry soldiers. At the same time, my school, the Advanced Situational Awareness Course, is for all soldiers, all military occupational specialties across the Army, which is kind of like your unit patch. No matter what your military occupational specialty, whatever your job is, when we're in this brigade, we all wear the same patch. So what does that patch mean? Well, you see that it's shaped like a shield. Why is it shaped like a shield? Because we protect the nation. It's also shaped like a shield because we are traditionally an armored cavalry unit, and a shield is a piece of armor. The 8 stars that you see around the border represent the 8th Tank Destroyer Group, the unit to which we draw our lineage. While the red and the white and the saber are obviously symbols, classic symbols of the cavalry. What I think is most important in that in our unit patch is the lightning bolt that you see in the center. The lightning bolt depicts speed, agility, and pinpoint accuracy, which are, of course, skills we want all of us and all of our soldier students to have as they go to their units, as they return to their units across the Army. So we talk about our history today because it's important to know our history. So we know all about all the men and women that came before us so that we can take what they learned and take it to the future. We talked about the Brigade's history and its original unit, which is notated by the panther that you see in our crest, the 8th Tank Destroyer Group. We talked about the history of our subordinate unit, the 16th Cavalry Regiment. We talked about our current mission and how basically that's the mission. Training soldiers is what we've been doing. The entire training soldiers and helping other MLSs is what we've been doing our entire history. And then we talked about what our unit patch means. I will leave you with the words of another great general from World War II, this time an infantryman like yourselves. General Dwight D. Eisenhower at one point said, and I quote, "Together we must learn to compose our differences, not with weapons, but with intellect and decent purpose," unquote. In other words, guys, you can't win every fight with your rifle. You got to use your brains too. So know your history. Thank you.